Good morning. It's Bank Holiday Monday. Thought I'd have some time out in the garage. Not too sure. Well, just thought I'd have a dig around and see what I could find, what we could do. I know there's the ongoing thing with the rocker cover. I have got the stuff to start polishing that, but obviously that's going to be quite time consuming. So I just thought we'd have a look at some other things we got in the workshop. So just pop that out of the way. So I thought we'd have a look at these horns. I'll put in there on here, and I've got another T-shirt. I think this one's called Ticking Tappets. I got this off of eBay. Unfortunately, it's white, so it's going to get dirty, but that's the whole point. These are for the workshop. Yeah, it's another one of those Austin garage ones. I quite like these. So not a bad T-shirt, not too expensive. So the horns I've got, this one I've had this for I've had this for a long time, but I never fitted it to anything. I'm not sure if it's Claxon or Claxton. I think it might be Claxon. I can't remember, but this is a Claxton or Claxton horn, and it makes that kind of older sort of noise that cars used to make years ago. I'm thinking of fitting this to the car as just a secondary joke horn. I don't think legally you can have this on its own as a warning, because I'd have to check, but I don't think you can have this on its own as a warning. This is just a novelty horn. The horns that the car will have, which I've had to buy because the horns that came with the car were broken. They weren't in particularly good condition. So what I've got is these Lucas snail horns. I presume they call them snail because of that funny shape on the bottom there to the air hole at the front. And they're, I think they're called air tone horns. And the idea is they're like dual tone. You have two of them, a high and a low, but they're operated at the same time. When you push the horn ring on the steering wheel, they both go off. There isn't like high low. It's just on, and they both come on. So when you look underneath the bonnet of the car, and you'll notice probably on my little ID picture for YouTube, there's me sitting in the front of the car. There's two holes either side of me in the slam panel or front bulkhead, or what do you want to call it. And these horns, those holes, these air holes would be poking through those holes in that slam panel, and they mount on the insides of the wings. So when you push the button, you get two horns coming on at once. They do sound quite good. There's those. They need to be painted. They have a cover on them, which is like these little pots. Obviously they go that way up, like that. And there's a little screw hole in the top. I'm not going to profess to be an electrician or knowing how things work, but I'm not sure about this one. But I think the idea of these essentially is hopefully you can see that there's a coil of copper wire there, and there's a metal core inside it, and there's also, you can probably see there are a set of points. And I think what it does is when you push the horn ring, you're essentially, through this set of points, you're energizing and de-energizing the coil. So it's a little bit like a tiny starter solenoid, except that it's going on off really fast. And instead of like on a starter solenoid, like on your car, like especially a pre-engaged starter, you've got the starter solenoid on the top. That's attached to a rod. So when you energize the power to the little tag on the side of the solenoid, it sends power not only through to the motor, but also it throws out a rod which throws the gear out, which goes onto your starter ring on your engine. This is obviously on a lot smaller scale, but instead of it being a starter dog or ring on the end of the rod that's being agitated, it's just a tiny metal disc. And I think what actually happens is, because it's vibrating very fast, or is able to do that through the points contact, like on off, or de-energize, energize really quickly, that vibrates the metal disc that's inside here, and that vibrates the air in here, and that makes your noise. I guess I may be wrong, but it's probably a bit like an acoustic guitar, those wooden acoustic guitars. It's an air box, so when you strum the strings in front of that air hole, it vibrates the air inside it and it comes out and you can hear it. I think this is kind of doing the same thing. and it's just through that disc vibrating very, very quickly, is vibrating the air in here, and it comes out and makes a sound. I think, but I think that's how it works. I'm sure I'll get corrected if I'm wrong, but I think that's how it works. So we'll try them out and see. I don't think they work right now, because I think that the points inside, the little contactors, I shouldn't probably call them points, but the little contactors there, they're corroded. So I need to clean them, and we'll see how they sound. So I've got some wet and dry paper. The reason I'm using wet and dry is, the reason I'm using that for cleaning the points is because how I was taught, and I've seen other people do it with points and ignition and other things. You get really, really coarse sandpaper and put it in between. As far as I know, you shouldn't really use coarse sandpaper, because all it does is carve up the surfaces, so you get high and low points in the surfaces of the points or contactors, and it means it doesn't do them any good, and you can also have them burning out even more because of it. So I was always taught to use a very, very fine paper if you're ever going to clean up points or contacting points or anything like that. There's no reason to be using anything really, really coarse. For those, I mean, I always say this, I'm teaching mum how to suck eggs, but for those who don't know, grading on paper, it looks a bit like that. So this is a 1200. So the bigger the number, the finer the grade of sandpaper, or wet and dry. The lower the number, the more coarse the paper is. I'm not sure how far down it goes, but I think if you get down to around 40, that's pretty much like real coarse emery paper. It's really, really strong. So what I'm going to do, so I've got the contactors in there, which I've shown you before. I'll show you there they are. I'm going to try to prise them open. I might have to take this bayonet, not saying it, this fitting here. That's what holds the top on. It's got the screw on. It just latches into the body of the horn. So I can hold them open like that. They're not too hard to do. Hold it open. So I'll put it in between there like that, just between the 2 points, and I'm just going to use that's it. I'm just going to drag it backwards a couple of times. I can't push it in and out because it will just kink the paper, because it's quite a strong grip it's got on it. So I'm just going to put it in. Oh no, I just hold them apart, just gently go backwards and forwards with the sandpaper, and then pull it out. And you'll see that on there, not much, there's a tiny little bit of dirt on there, not a huge amount, but it's enough probably that they won't work. And what I could do with doing, if I'm careful, take a bit of the brake clean and just gently, don't have to drown it, just fire that in there, just to give them a bit of a clean. Do the same with this one. So hopefully now they should work. He says. Right, I'll wire them up and let's see what they sound like. Okay, I've got the horns wired up, and as you can see, it's been professionally wired. I mean, I want it noted, the profession of this. I mean, even look at this. This is brilliant, isn't it? Obviously, no, that's not the way you wire things, but it's just temporary. It just saves wasting crimp connectors and things. It's just for a test. So they're as secure as I can get them. Real basic wiring, just positive in on one side, linked to the other horn, and then the negative out, and then linked, and then I shall just touch the negative against the negative terminal on the battery and make it work. Let's just see what happens, see if they go. Okay, so we'll give these a quick test. They are, as far as I remember, when I last tested these, they are quite loud, and I can't do it for too long, otherwise I'll get the neighbours complaining. So let's just see what they sound like. Yeah, that's not too bad, is it? I think that'll get people out of the way. Right, while we've got the horns out, I thought we'd just see how the klaxon or claxton horn sounds. I'm not too sure if it works the same way inside as this one. It might be different, it might be on the solenoid, it might be on the motor, it might be slightly different, but let's see what it sounds like anyway. Obviously it needs to be bolted to something because it shoots off. So I presume the way it moved, it probably means there's a motor inside it instead of it being a diaphragm. Well, it works. I've not actually ever tried it. I've had that for more than 20 years and I've never used it. So, but okay, sorry about the noise. That's the diesel heater running. So it's got a bit cold in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start. Well, I've already started already prepping these for paint because they're sort of starting to get a bit rusty and things like that. So that's the next task: get it prepped, get them into primer, and then get them into the top coat black. If I've got any paint, I think I have. Find out. Oh yeah, got some paint. Very important. So what I found is the hole in the horn here, the air hole. Over the years, I think it's been painted with, I don't know, hammerite or stone chip or something, and there was a lot of corrosion underneath it. It was starting to go powdery, so I've had to cut it back with just a small light grade emery bit on my Dremel. All I've done is just literally just go backwards and forwards with it. I've let the tool do the work. I'm not pushing with it because it's still, although it's a light grade, it's still quite coarse to aluminium because aluminium is obviously relatively soft. So if you push too hard, you'll start cutting into the casing. So that's how I've cleaned that up anyway. It needs a little bit more work, but and the other one will be exactly the same. But what I have found, and I'm presuming the other one will be the same, is how you tell which one is high and which one is low if you just want to know without operating them. It's actually got a, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a H. I don't know whether you'll be able to see that or not. You might know, but there's actually a H pressed into the casing there, and I think there's one on the top part as well. That was probably more, well, maybe more for production, but at least you can actually tell, I guess, off the shelf, or if you don't know, there's a H. So that's a high one. I'm presuming the other one has an L, which will mean it will be a low tone. So I shall just carry on with that. I've got the horn bodies pretty much taken down as good as I can get them. I've got pretty much rid of most of the flaky paint and corrosion. They're all degreased now and ready to go into a bit of etch prime and then some black top coat. And yeah, the other horn does have an L inside it for low, so there is actually letters stamped in them so you know what tone they are. Right, the horns are in primer. I'm just going to leave these to dry for a bit and then we'll put the top coat black. Right, time to get some top coat on, some top coat black. Okay, that's the horns in top coat black. Doesn't look too bad, or they don't look too bad, should I say. It is spray can paint, like rattle can. It would have been nice to paint them with the gun, but I just don't have any black paint to go in it, so it just gets them done. And it's another thing I can get ticked off the list and put into a box, and it's another thing done. Right, okay, thanks for watching, take care, bye now.